The air in this specific West Hollywood gym always hummed with a strange electricity, part ambition, part delusion, a place where legends quietly refined their legacy, while newcomers loudly broadcasted their intent. This particular afternoon, the light filtering through the panoramic windows seemed almost cinematic, illuminating dust motes dancing over cold, polished chrome. And there, deep in the heavy iron section, moving with the labored, deliberate rhythm of a man who built his empire one painful rep at a time, was Sylvester Stallone. He wasn't performing, he was working. He wore a faded gray hoodie, the kind that absorbs struggle, every muscle fiber strained, every tendon taut. He was pushing the final, grueling set of incline press, a weight most men half his age would simply stare at. Sweat was honest on his brow, dripping onto the worn leather bench. His breathing was deep, rattling, the sound of 50 years of discipline etched onto his lungs. Then, the silence was shattered, not by the clanging of iron, but by a voice, high, amplified, and coated in the slick veneer of privileged expertise. A young man, perhaps 30, stepped directly into the space. This was Ryan, a self-proclaimed fitness disruptor and host of a massive streaming health show. Ryan wore custom, seamless compression gear that likely cost more than Stallone's first acting paycheck. He carried the aura of manufactured success, polished and entirely untested by genuine failure. He was flanked by a nervous cameraman holding a high-definition rig, its lens pointed squarely at the struggling icon. Ryan didn't wait for a pause. He didn't offer a greeting. He launched the attack, disguised as a professional critique, his tone condescendingly analytical. "Sir, excuse me, but we are filming a segment on optimized strength training," Ryan announced, his voice carrying the forced authority of a lecturer addressing a child. "And frankly, your current form, that excessive arching, and the clear lack of mind-muscle connection is fundamentally inefficient. You're inviting shoulder injury. And truthfully, those reps aren't going to count for anything substantial. You're wasting energy. Our data shows a strict, controlled tempo is superior for hypertrophy." Stallone finished the set. The bar crashed home, the sound echoing throughout the suddenly silent gym floor. The tension was instant and suffocating. Every head turned. Trainers stopped cueing clients. The low buzz of treadmills seemed to fade into nothingness. Stallone remained seated for a moment, his chest heaving, his face hidden partly by the shadow of the hoodie. He didn't look up immediately. He just sat there, allowing the cold, clinical judgment of Ryan's performance to hang in the air like cheap perfume. He was breathing, slow and heavy, the sound of physical endurance battling intellectual arrogance. Ryan, emboldened by the silence, pushed further, leaning closer to the camera. "See this, folks? This is the difference between working out and training. The old school insists on grinding out reps for ego, relying on sheer will. But the body doesn't care about will. It only responds to metrics. This is suboptimal." He tapped Stallone's massive, ropey forearm with a manicured finger. "The technique is flawed." Finally, Stallone shifted. Slowly, deliberately, he reached for his towel, wiped the sweat from his eyes, and lowered his feet to the ground. He stood up. The movement wasn't quick or aggressive, but it carried the gravitational force of a heavyweight legend rising from his chair. He was taller, broader, and infinitely more dense than the young man scrutinizing him. The scars and wrinkles on Stallone's face told stories Ryan had only read about in history books. He looked down at Ryan. His gaze was heavy, profound, a look that had stared down villains and box office failure alike. It wasn't anger, it was disappointment. Ryan straightened up, ready for the defensive argument, ready to deploy his next statistical rebuttal. He adjusted his mic. Stallone spoke. His voice was gravelly, quiet, the kind of voice that demands attention not through volume but through sheer weight of experience. "You talk about metrics," Stallone began. The words slow, measured, each one a hammer blow. "You talk about efficiency. You talk about what the body responds to." He paused, letting the silence swallow Ryan's forced smile. "Let me tell you something about that rep you just dismissed." Stallone stepped closer, forcing Ryan to instinctively take a small step back, bumping into his cameraman. The lens was still rolling, capturing every micron of discomfort. "That rep, the ugly one, the one where my back arched a little, the one where I had to cheat just to finish, that wasn't for hypertrophy," he said, his eyes drilling into Ryan's. "That rep was for survival." The distinction hung in the air, thick and devastating. "You calculate failure on a spreadsheet," Stallone continued, his voice gaining depth. We calculate failure when the mirror tells us we've lost the fight. You chase perfect form for the camera. We chase the edge of collapse because that is where the growth actually happens. Not the muscle growth, kid. The character growth. He leaned in further, his presence dominating the frame. You look at that lift and you see inefficiency. I look at that lift and I see the moment I chose grit over comfort. I see the choice to keep fighting when every fiber was screaming quit. That's not a data point, Ryan. That's the engine. Ryan's face was draining of color. His rehearsed professionalism was dissolving under the weight of genuine authenticity. He fumbled for words, reaching for his statistical defense, but finding only empty air. "You're training your Instagram profile," Stallone concluded, his voice dropping to a low, powerful growl that carried an undeniable truth. "We train to be ready for the world. You're worried about wasting a rep. We worried about wasting a life." He glanced at the camera lens for a fleeting moment, a ghost of the fighter flashing in his eyes, then turned his focus back to Ryan, delivering the final, crushing blow. The brutal wisdom of a man who earned his legacy in pain, not in clicks. The greatest metric isn't how much you lift or how perfect your angle is. It's how much you can endure and still stand up. It's the ability to finish what you started, especially when it looks messy. Because life, Stallone said, nodding toward the heavy iron, is messy. It doesn't follow your protocol. And when the real fight comes, efficiency doesn't matter. Heart does. He dropped his towel onto the bench, turned his back on the speechless host, and walked calmly toward the water fountain. He didn't look back. The young host, Ryan, stood frozen. The camera continued to roll, capturing the total, humiliating demolition of his manufactured bravado. His segment on optimized strength had just been optimized out of existence by 3 paragraphs of raw, unfiltered reality. The gym, which had been silent, erupted into low chatter, followed by applause that started slow and grew into a genuine ovation. Men and women approached Stallone, not for autographs, but just to offer a nod of respect. Ryan and his cameraman packed up quickly, their disruption having backfired completely. The footage, however, went viral before they could even edit it, leaked by an observer who captured the entire exchange on a cell phone. It spread like wildfire, not because of Stallone's celebrity, but because his words articulated a profound cultural yearning, the hunger for authentic struggle over plastic perfection. It was a stark, brutal reminder that experience will always trump theory, that those who live truly tough lives carry a wisdom that cannot be Googled, lectured, or quantified. In a world saturated with performance and manufactured identity, the quiet voice of the veteran, speaking of survival and grit, was the ultimate act of defiance. The gym bully came looking for a viral clip, but left with a life lesson he would never forget. He tried to intimidate a legend with data and was dismantled by truth. The world needs more people like this. Share if you agree.